Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. This time we're painting these cherry blossom flowers. This time I wanted to paint these loose. I didn't want to focus on too much detail. Pretty much I started from that main flower. I wetted each petal and then I started adding colors. Later on I added another layer for more vibrancy, and also I lifted up the middle sections, the center. This is our reference photo and I actually took this picture myself, and this is my pencil sketch. You are welcome to download this sketch or try to trace onto your watercolor paper. And these are the colors I chose. So I pretty much always use quinacridone red, which is my main red color, but it's on the pinkish side, and then I needed a little more like a purple hint in it, so that's why I chose bright rose. Then indigo is just a navy dark blue color, and then cobalt blue. I usually add a little bit of bluish whenever I paint pinkish flowers. And for the brushes, so the chisel blender I used to lift up. Round 1 Barocco was just used for smaller areas because my main brush was round 8 Black Velvet series, which is the softer brush. It's long. For the paper, I just used cold pressed watercolor paper by Arches, and this is 140 pounds. And this is a screenshot of my working palette, so you always know what colors are placed where on my palette. So this is a round 8 brush, Black Velvet series by Silver Brush, and I use this brush to wet each petal. That's why I'm kind of adding a little more water, so to make sure that they spread. And this is the mix of Quin Red and Bright Rose. I added a little bit, tiny bit of yellow ochre as well. Pretty much I always mix the Quin Red and yellow ochre whenever I want to achieve that peachy rosy kind of color. And I continue adding a little more, starting from that center and just watching how it spreads. But now I want a little more diluted paint, and also I'm mixing in some of the cobalt blue. So I'm pushing that paint and I'm adding a little more water. You kind of have to help yourself. It's not as easy for that paint to spread. I'm grabbing some of the Van Dyke Brown Burnt Sienna in some of the yellow ochre. And starting from the center, I'm adding a little bit of that color in the center, wetting again, and then adding paint. The same procedure, the same thing. So you want to wet the petal, and I'm using for that the pointy part of the brush, but then I need to use that pointy part of the brush and I'm holding it closer to the head, that brush, so it's easier to control for me what I'm doing and spreading it, because I could easily just use a smaller brush like a round 2. So technically if you don't have this brush, go ahead and use like a round 2. This is a flower and it's on the looser style, so I'm not worried here too much. I just go with the flow basically. So I added some water and I'm spreading more of that paint because I want parts of those petals to be more concentrated with paint and the other parts to be flowy, more like water in there. So wetting again another piece, I'm just adding a little more paint, a little bit of paint, and then I'm using a wet brush to spread what I have. But again, I'm trying to stick to the fact that I want more like the center to be more vibrant, and then the rest of the petals be a little less vibrant. I'm trying to preserve some of the white areas on the paper at the same time, and just using the tip of my brush to work this. And this is a Van Dyke Brown. I need more indigo now. Okay, I didn't have indigo before, so that's why I'm adding a little now. So I'm pre-mixing these colors for the tree. And what happens here, you can't really see that well. I'm sorry about that. I covered it with my hand a little bit, but I pretty much grabbed 2 colors with that brush. This is the third color, Burnt Sienna. But I grabbed a little bit of indigo on one side of the brush. The other side had a little bit of Van Dyke Brown and then Burnt Sienna. And I kind of take advantage of the fact that these colors are still separate in a way, but they're mixing on the paper. So because I didn't pre-mix these colors on a palette and I'm kind of mixing them on a paper, that's why you see those colors like kind of joining together in a way, like they're merging, they're blending, mixing on its own while the paint is spreading, because this is painted now wet on dry. So I'm painting these trees wet on dry and letting those colors to mix. So like those lines are not that defined. I'm kind of going with the flow, and I'm not trying to make these like so precise, like, so there's more of the Queen Red and Bright Rose, and I'm adding more color this time. I would say this is more like a wet on dry. So, but this is the moment where you can decide like how vibrant do you want your flowers to be, and you definitely don't have to paint another layer. And now I'm letting it dry to add another layer. So I can add another layer. So there's cobalt blue and some of the bright rose and Queen Red. So I'm creating my purple on the side, and I'm doing this purple because I want to create some of those shadows. I need it to be a little more paler, like it's a shadow, so for shadows. And later on I'll paint the real stamens, the flower stamens, over that. This painting won't be as vibrant as normally I would paint things whenever I add like sometimes even 3 or 4 layers. But I'm mixing a little more of that purple, and this is cobalt blue with indigo and some of those pinks mixed together. So this is Queen Red and Bright Rose, so cobalt blue and indigo. And I will be lifting up the areas once this is dry. So it first has to completely dry, and then I can lift up. Right now what I'm doing, I'm just adding a little more of those petals. So basically this is very loose. You can spatter some paint. So dipping my brush in water and grabbing a little more of the Bright Rose and Queen Red and adding more towards the center. Let this dry before I can start lifting up. And there's the moment I am lifting up. So this is harder to see too, but basically I'm gonna do some close-ups here so you guys can see it better. But I'm rubbing on one area in one direction. It's like I'm creating straight line. And right now I'm using this small brush. This is a very tiny brush actually, even it's just the size 1. It's very thin and long, and I like this brush a lot because it's stiff. It's stiff and it gives me a lot of control. But this is the one of my favorite brushes. It's just how easy it is to work with it. So on top of that lifting up, I am adding a little more. So you will see that more in close-up photos, how everything like settled. So all my lifting up, and on top of that adding those flower stamens. So this is like a quick painting, almost like an exercise. But this is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you paint along. Please share when you're done.